The sound of paper tearing broke the silence. "Get this garbage out of my sight," snapped Nabil Haddad, his voice smooth but venomous. His diamond cufflinks caught the light as he pointed toward a small figure kneeling by his desk. Lena Carter, only 12 years old, froze. Her thin fingers gripped the edges of the waste bin. She didn't lift her eyes. She had learned that looking powerful men in the eye only made them angrier. But today was different. Nabil kicked the bin. Crumpled papers scattered across the marble floor like fallen leaves. His assistant Rami chuckled. "Boss, she's slower than her mother. Maybe she inherited her stupidity." A quiet laugh followed. But from Lena came silence. Her mother, Clara, worked the night shift cleaning the same building. Lena helped after school because their rent had doubled last month. Nabil muttered something sharp and fluid. In Arabic. "Worthless pests," he said. "Americans are blind. By the time they sign the contract, we'll own everything. Their buildings, their land, their future." He smirked, stepping on the same papers Lena had just picked up. But what he didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the worthless pest understood every word he said. Lena's father had died years ago in Jordan, and Arabic had been his language. She'd learned it in secret, hiding language books behind old cereal boxes, whispering new words under her breath while scrubbing office floors. And now, every cruel word Nabil threw at her carved itself deep into her memory, not as pain, but as proof. When he turned his back, she quietly gathered the papers again. His words echoed in her mind. "We'll steal $600 million before these fools even notice. $600 million. She didn't even know what that much money looked like, but she knew it could build schools, hospitals, maybe fix the moldy ceiling in their apartment. She swallowed hard and left the office, her heart racing. She couldn't tell anyone. No one would believe her. Not a cleaner's daughter. Not a child. That night, the scent of bleach clung to Clara's hair as she counted supply forms in the storage room. The clock ticked past midnight. Lena sat beside her, staring at the floor. "Mama," she said softly, "the man upstairs, the one with the gold watch. He's planning something bad." Clara didn't look up. "Lena, baby, we don't get involved in their business. We just work, clean, and go home." "But Mama," Lena whispered, "I understood him. He said he'll steal Mr. Grant's money. $600 million. Clara's pen froze in midair. "What are you talking about? You don't speak Arabic." Lena hesitated, then pulled out her cracked phone. The screen flickered, revealing language learning apps, notes, and videos. "I learned online. And from Mrs. Noor upstairs. She's from Lebanon. She taught me words after I helped her with groceries." Clara blinked as if seeing her daughter for the first time. "Lena, you mean you understood everything he said?" "Every word," Lena replied. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. "He said they'll change the contract, make it look fair, but it gives them everything. He called Americans stupid. He called me garbage. And he said we'd never stop him." Clara dropped her clipboard. It clattered against the bucket of mops. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her voice cracked. "Baby, you can't get involved. We could lose everything. The insurance, my job. We could lose more if we stay quiet," Lena interrupted. "He's going to ruin people's lives. Remember the Green Hill Homes project? The one for families like ours? He said he'll turn it into luxury condos. Those people will have nowhere to go." Clara's shoulders slumped. "He's powerful, Lena. Men like him don't get punished. They just buy forgiveness." "Then we'll find someone who listens," Lena said, eyes fierce now. "Mr. Grant will believe me. He has to." Her mother stared at her, torn between fear and pride. "You're 12. No one listens to 12-year-olds. Then I'll make them listen." By the time they reached the top floor, the office halls were empty, bathed in the hum of fluorescent lights. Security guards watched curiously as Clara and her daughter approached the executive wing. "Excuse me," Clara said nervously to the guard. "We need to speak to Mr. Grant. It's urgent." The guard frowned. "He's not taking visitors this late, ma'am." "It's okay, Oliver," came a calm voice. David Grant, CEO of Grant Holdings, appeared at the door, rolling up his sleeves. "Mrs. Carter, right? What's wrong?" Clara's hands shook. "Sir, my daughter. She heard something about your contract tomorrow. Something dangerous." Grant raised an eyebrow and looked down at Lena, who stood half hidden behind her mother. "Your daughter?" "Yes, sir," Clara said. She speaks Arabic." Grant smiled gently. "Really, that's impressive, young lady. What did you hear?" Lena hesitated. "The man with the gold watch, Mr. Haddad, he said you're a fool. That Americans are stupid and easy to trick. He's planning to take your money using fake contracts. Grant's polite smile faltered. Sweetheart, those are serious words. Are you sure you didn't misunderstand? Lena straightened. He said, we'll take everything from these blind Americans. Her pronunciation was perfect, each Arabic syllable precise. Grant's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. Then Lena translated, word for word, a complex legal phrase in Arabic. That means temporary partnership until transfer of ownership. It sounds harmless, but it actually means he'll own everything after 6 months. Grant stared, stunned. How did you learn to read legal Arabic? Lena shrugged. YouTube. Books, people who didn't mind teaching me. Grant's voice dropped to a whisper. Can you show me where it says that in the contract? She nodded. Do you have a copy? Moments later, she was at his desk, her small finger tracing the printed Arabic text. Here, it says temporary, but it's a trick word. It means something else in Emirati Arabic. This other phrase means complete authority, not shared. Grant leaned back, speechless. You just exposed a $600 million fraud. Lena looked up. It's worse, sir. He said there's a lawyer in your own company helping him. Grant's face drained of color. In my company? Lena nodded. He said if anything goes wrong, our American lawyer will fix it. The silence in the room was sharp enough to cut glass. Grant slowly rose from his chair. Mrs. Carter, your daughter may have just saved us all. Grant's office phone buzzed, but he didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the small girl sitting across from him, legs dangling from the chair, her courage filling the room larger than anyone's title ever could. Lena, he said quietly, you understand this means danger. These men aren't just businessmen. They have reach. They have power. I know, she whispered, clutching her backpack. But power doesn't mean they're right. Grant gave a small, tired smile. You remind me of my daughter, Emma. She's your age. She always says grown-ups forget how to be brave. He straightened his suit. All right then. Tomorrow we confront them. But first I have to convince my board that a 12-year-old just uncovered corporate espionage. The next morning, the Grant Holdings boardroom gleamed with sunlight reflecting off glass and steel. But the warmth didn't reach the faces around the table. David, said Margaret Cole, senior partner with a sharp voice that could slice through silence. You're postponing a $600 million deal because a child claims she overheard something. This is absurd. It's not a claim, David replied firmly. It's a fact. She speaks fluent Arabic and translated sections of the contract none of our experts caught. Across the table, Robert Chase and other partners smirked. So now we're hiring middle schoolers for our legal team? Maybe next the janitor can review our tax audits. A few soft chuckles rippled around the room. Clara shifted uncomfortably by the door, her cleaning uniform crisp but trembling slightly under the weight of their stares. Lena sat silently beside her mother, her feet barely reaching the floor. Every laugh felt like a slap, but she didn't look down. She's a child from the service staff, Robert continued. Even if she speaks Arabic, that doesn't mean she understands corporate law. This is a waste of— Mr. Chase, Lena interrupted softly. You said summa cum laude when you introduced yourself earlier. But you pronounced it wrong. It's summa, not summa. Latin stress rules, second syllable emphasis. The room went silent. And Mrs. Cole, Lena added, her voice steady. You said, these people twice. When you say these people, you really mean people you think are beneath you. Margaret's face flushed red. David leaned forward, barely hiding his smile. Now does anyone still think this girl doesn't understand language? Silence. Then slowly, one of the junior partners muttered, Maybe we should let her explain. David nodded. Lena, can you tell them exactly what you heard? Lena took a breath. Mr. Haddad said the deal was a scam. The Arabic version of the contract gives his company full control after 30 days, not 60. And there's a hidden clause of a penalty. $600 million to them if you ever try to cancel. Margaret frowned. That's ridiculous. We had certified translators. Lena looked at her directly. They didn't understand the dialect. It's a mix of Gulf Arabic and Old Levantine legal terms. Most translators would miss it. The partners exchanged uneasy glances. Robert cleared his throat. Even if this were true, we can't base corporate action on a child's story. Then test me, Lena said. Give me the contract. Margaret hesitated, then gestured to an assistant. A copy was handed to Lena. She scanned it, lips moving silently, then tapped a paragraph halfway through. "This line here," she said. "It looks like it says temporary joint management. But that word, muaqqat, in this dialect means until authority is transferred. It doesn't end. It continues until ownership shifts." The assistant blinked. That's correct. I studied Arabic in college." "She's right." David turned to the table. "Still think we're imagining things?" Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. "If what she's saying is true, this could be catastrophic." David nodded grimly. "Then we stop it. Today." He turned to Lena. "I need your help one more time. Can you stay close tomorrow when we meet them again?" "Yes, sir," she said. "But if he sees me, he might remember my face." "Then he won't see you," David replied. "You'll just be there with your mom." "Nothing more," Lena's heart thudded. "And if he talks in Arabic again?"
Translate in your head.
"Tell me later." She looked up. "No, I can help you in real time." He frowned. "How?" Lena opened her backpack and pulled out her tablet. Cracked, taped at the corners. "I can draw signals. Red means they're lying. Blue means they're telling the truth. Green means something important. I'll send them to your phone." David blinked, then smiled slowly. "That's actually brilliant." "Sometimes cleaning people have to think creatively," Clara said quietly. Margaret sighed, rubbing her temples. "We're truly doing this. We're trusting a child to outsmart international criminals?" David looked around the table. "Yes, because she already has." The next day, the conference room buzzed with tension. Nabil Haddad arrived early, wearing his confidence like a crown. His assistant trailed behind, carrying a leather folder and the kind of smirk only people who think they'll never lose can afford. "Mr. Grant," Nabil said smoothly, extending his hand. "A pleasure, as always." "The pleasure's mutual," David replied evenly. "Let's finalize the deal." Clara and Lena entered quietly through the side door, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. Nabil didn't even glance their way. To him, they were invisible. Lena knelt by the corner, tablet resting on her lap, her fingers trembling just slightly. The adults' voices filled the room, polite, careful, deadly. Nabil began speaking Arabic to his assistant. "Everything is ready. They'll sign in minutes. The fools don't even realize they're giving us full control." A red dot appeared on David's phone. He didn't flinch. "Mr. Haddad," he said lightly. "Before we proceed, I'd like to revisit Section 47B. Something about the subsidiary structure seems interesting." Nabil's smile flickered. "A minor clause, nothing significant. Blue dot, red dot. Blue dot." Lena's fingers move faster now, her small hands sketching silent truth into colors. "You're proposing a 30-day ownership transition?" David asked. Nabil's eyes narrowed. "How did you know that?" David's tone stayed calm. "Just a hunch," the assistant whispered in Arabic. "He shouldn't know that." "Be careful." Another red dot. For the first time, Nabil's confidence cracked. "Perhaps we should—" "No," David said firmly. "Perhaps you should explain why our contract says 60 days in English but 30 in Arabic." The room froze. Nabil's assistant stammered. "It must be a translation error." "I don't think so," David interrupted. "Because my translation source is flawless." In the corner, Lena pretended to color butterflies. Her heart raced as she heard Nabil mutter to his assistant in Arabic. "Who told him?" "There's a spy here." Her hands shook. The red dot blinked faster. Nabil's gaze swept the room, over the lawyers, over the guards, and finally stopped on her. The air grew cold. He walked slowly toward the child, his polished shoes tapping the floor like a countdown. "What are you drawing, little one?" he asked softly. Lena smiled without looking up. "A butterfly." In Arabic, he said suddenly, switching tongues. "What's your name?" She didn't react. He crouched beside her. "Do you understand me?" Still nothing. Her crayon kept moving. Nabil smirked, convinced. Just a stupid child, but then, just for a split second, her crayon stopped and he saw it. Nabil's eyes narrowed. The room seemed to shrink, every heartbeat loud enough for Lena to hear it echo in her ears. His voice dropped to a whisper sharp enough to cut glass. "You paused," he said softly in Arabic. "You understand me, don't you?" Lena blinked up at him, pretending not to know a single word. "Sir?" she said in perfect English, voice trembling just the right amount. "I don't understand what you mean." He leaned closer, his breath laced with expensive cologne and arrogance. "You're lying," he murmured in Arabic again. Who are you? Lena's eyes glistened as if she might cry. Mama, she whispered, he's scaring me. Clara stepped forward, gripping the mop handle. Mr. Haddad, please, she's just a child. But Nabil slammed his hand on the table. I will not have unauthorized people in this meeting. Remove them now. David stood up slowly, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. They're not going anywhere. Nabil's face darkened. Then there will be no deal. He began gathering his documents, fury twisting his features. You Americans think you can lecture us about honesty, yet you bring spies into negotiations? Before you storm out, David said evenly, you might want to hear what your spy has to say. Nabil froze. Excuse me? David turned to Lena. Would you tell Mr. Haddad in Arabic exactly what you heard him say about the $600 million penalty clause? The room went still. Every lawyer, every assistant, every board member watched as the small girl stood from her corner, her tablet still in her hand. Lena looked straight into Nabil's eyes. When she spoke, her Arabic was clear, fluid, and cold. You said the real text gives you complete control after 30 days. You said the Americans will pay $600 million when they try to stop you, and you laughed about how easy it is to fool people who can't understand Arabic. Nabil stumbled backward as if she had struck him. His assistant dropped his pen. That's a lie, Nabil shouted, switching back to English. She's making this up. Without another word, Lena tapped her tablet. From its small speakers, Nabil's own voice filled the air, his Arabic sentences sharp and unmistakable. The translation scrolled on the screen in real time. We'll take everything from these blind Americans. They'll never know. The poor neighborhoods they plan to help will become resorts for the rich. Gasps filled the room. Margaret Cole's hand flew to her mouth. Robert Chase looked pale. David's tone was ice. That's your voice, Mr. Haddad. You might want to sit down. Nabil's assistant bolted for the door, but 2 security guards were already there. Lena held the tablet tighter. You called me garbage, she said softly. You kicked my bucket. You said my mother was nothing. But you were wrong. You thought I was invisible. While you were busy talking about stealing from people like us, I was listening. Nabil's lips trembled. You recorded in everything, she said. Every word. The boardroom felt smaller now, filled with the weight of his downfall. David picked up his phone. I'm calling federal investigators. Your deal is over. No, Nabil shouted. Please, please, we can fix this. Explain it to the authorities, David said. Lena took a step closer. You wanted to take homes from families like mine. You wanted to make children sleep in cars so rich men could build their towers. You thought I wouldn't understand, but I do. And I'm not afraid of you. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. Nabil's legs gave out and he fell back into his chair. The empire he built on arrogance and lies was collapsing faster than he could breathe. The lawyers who had doubted Lena now stared at her, as though they were witnessing something divine. Margaret whispered, she's a genius. Robert swallowed hard. A genius who just saved this company. David looked at her with something between awe and gratitude. Miss Carter, he said, his voice thick with emotion, you've done something extraordinary. You've changed everything. But Lena shook her head. No, sir. I just told the truth. The rest was up to everyone finally listening. The security guards escorted Nabil and his assistant out, as whispers spread through the office like wildfire. Reporters would soon learn the story. The firm would survive because of a child they almost ignored. David turned to Clara. Your daughter doesn't belong behind a mop. She belongs behind a desk or maybe in front of a classroom. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I always knew she was special. I just didn't think the world would ever see it. They will now, David said. Lena looked up at him shyly. Mr. Grant, can I ask something? Anything. When this is over, could I meet Emma? You said she likes to read. Maybe I can teach her some Arabic. David smiled for the first time in hours. She would love that. The boardroom door opened and 2 federal agents stepped inside, their badges glinting under the lights. Nabil's voice echoed faintly from the hallway, desperate and broken. Lena exhaled, her body trembling from adrenaline. Is it really over? She asked. David nodded. Thanks to you? Clara wrapped her arms around her daughter. You did it, baby. But Lena wasn't smiling. Her eyes were distant, thoughtful. He said they've done this to other companies before, she murmured. Someone has to stop them there too. David's expression hardened. Then we will, starting today. And for the first time, the room that had once dismissed a little girl's voice now listened like their futures depended on it. Outside, the city lights flickered against the windows, and Lena stood quietly watching them, her reflection small but unbreakable. She whispered to herself, "People think silence means weakness, but sometimes silence just means you're listening." The next morning, the building felt different. The marble floors gleamed brighter, the air itself felt lighter like a storm had finally passed. But for Lena, the quiet that followed victory didn't feel like rest. It felt like the beginning of something she couldn't name. When she and her mother arrived for work, people stopped talking when they walked by. The same executives who used to glance past them now smiled too quickly, spoke too softly. Some said thank you, some just stared. Lena didn't know what to do with any of it. David met them at the elevator. "Come with me," he said. "There's something you both need to see." They followed him to the top floor, his private office where the city skyline glowed through tall windows. The desk that once belonged to Nabil's arrogance now held a single folder and a framed document. David turned toward them, eyes shining. "Lena Carter, as of today, you are officially recognized as Grant Holdings' Junior Linguistic Consultant. You'll receive a scholarship for your education, full funding for college, and your own desk right here in this office." Clara gasped, hand flying to her chest. "Mr. Grant, we can't accept." "This isn't charity," David said gently. "It's payment. She saved $600 million and exposed international fraud. There's no number big enough for that." Lena's lips parted, but no sound came. She looked down at her hands, small and trembling. "I don't need an office," she said quietly. "I just want to keep learning," David smiled. "Then this desk will be your classroom. Learn as much as you want. The company will make sure you never run out of books." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but Lena only nodded. Something in her face had changed, still soft but edged with new fire. That week, her name appeared in newspapers around the country. 12-year-old exposes global scam. Cleaner's daughter outsmarts corporate crooks. Some headlines called her a prodigy. Others called her a miracle. Lena didn't feel like either. She just felt awake. Reporters waited outside the building. Cameras flashed. People she had never met called her brave, brilliant, extraordinary. But when she went home, her small apartment was still the same. The creaky floor, the old books piled on the kitchen counter, the leaky faucet that dripped all night. One evening, Clara found her sitting on the windowsill, notebook open, writing in Arabic, then translating each line into English and Spanish. "What are you working on?" her mother asked softly. "A story," Lena said without looking up. "About people who are invisible until someone finally sees them." Clara touched her shoulder. "The world sees you now, baby." Lena looked up, eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight. "Then maybe they'll start seeing others too." Months passed. Nabil Haddad and his assistant were convicted of international fraud. Their names vanished from company boards, their luxury homes sold off. The case made headlines across continents. The Carter Girl case, journalists called it, but Lena wasn't following the news. She was in her room surrounded by dictionaries, headphones, and endless notebooks filled with strange alphabets: Hindi, Swahili, Mandarin. Her goal was no longer just to learn languages. It was to build bridges between people who never had the chance to speak to each other. David visited once every few weeks, bringing her new books and puzzles. "You've become my best advisor," he told her once, smiling. "Half the board is still afraid you'll correct their grammar again." Lena laughed softly. They should be. At school, things were different too. Teachers who used to ignore her now gave her extra credit. Kids who once teased her now sat beside her, asking how to say their names in Arabic. Yet she never bragged, never boasted. Her calm confidence was louder than any pride. She started tutoring refugee children in her neighborhood after classes, translating homework and filling out forms for parents who couldn't read English. The local community center gave her a small corner room for her lessons. She painted a sign above the door. "Words are bridges." Sometimes, when she walked home at sunset, she'd think about that day in the boardroom, the moment she stood up to a man who thought money made him invincible. She'd remember how her voice didn't shake, and every time she thought of it, she felt less like a child and more like someone who had already seen the truth of the world. A year later, a new brass plate gleamed on an office door in Grant Holdings Tower. It read, "Lena Carter, youth linguistic consultant. She sat at her desk, now 13, flipping between documents in French, Arabic, and Mandarin. On one corner of the desk sat her school textbooks. On the other, papers stamped with government seals. On the wall hung framed letters from the State Department, the FBI, and 3 universities offering her early admission. But her favorite thing in the room wasn't an award. It was a photo. In it, she stood with a circle of refugee children, all laughing as she held a whiteboard marker mid-air, teaching them how to say home in 5 languages. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she said. David stepped inside, his smile tired but proud. "Lena, there's someone I'd like you to meet." He stepped aside, revealing a shy girl with golden hair clutching a soccer ball. "This is my daughter, Emma." Lena smiled warmly. "Hi," Emma shuffled awkwardly. "My dad says you speak—" "A lot of languages. Only 12 fluently," Lena said with a grin. "I'm working on Mandarin." Emma's eyes widened. "Could you teach me something?" Lena pointed at the soccer ball. "Ana uhibu kura al-kadam, that means I love soccer." Emma giggled, repeating the words carefully. Lena laughed with her. "Perfect pronunciation. You could pass for a pro already." David watched them talk, his heart swelling. For him, this was what justice looked like. Not a courtroom victory or a company's survival, but 2 children from different worlds laughing together, building something new. When they finished, David asked softly, "Ready for the scholarship ceremony?" Lena nodded, gathering her papers. Together they walked to the same conference room where her world had changed forever. Rows of teenagers and parents filled the seats. Students from shelters, orphanages, and struggling schools. On the front table, a banner read the Lena Carter Foundation for Hidden Voices. David stood before them. "Today, 15 students will receive full scholarships," he said. Each one was nominated by someone who saw potential when no one else did. He turned toward Lena. "But before we begin, I think we should hear from the person who inspired this." Lena stepped to the podium. The crowd quieted instantly. She looked around, her gaze steady, her voice calm. "A year ago someone called me worthless," she began. "He said people like me don't belong in rooms like this. He was wrong, but not because I'm special, because everyone here is." She paused, letting the silence deepen. "Maybe people told you that you're too young, too poor, too different. Maybe they ignored you like they ignored me. But let me tell you something. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes silence means you're learning, waiting for the right moment to speak." A girl in the front row wiped her tears. Lena continued, her words rising like music. "The hardest part isn't proving you're smart enough. It's believing it yourself when no one else does. You don't have to be rich or powerful to change something. You just have to pay attention." She smiled softly. "The next time you see someone cleaning an office, ask them their story. The next time you pass a kid sitting alone, ask what they're thinking. You never know what miracles are hiding behind quiet eyes." Her voice broke slightly on the last line. "And don't make them wait as long as I did to be seen." The room erupted in applause, slow at first, then thunderous. David wiped his eyes. Clara clapped until her palms stung. And somewhere deep inside, Lena finally felt something she hadn't before, not pride, not victory, but peace, because for the first time, she knew her voice had built something bigger than a company or a case. It had built a bridge. The applause rolled on until it began to blur into a low hum, like rain against glass. Lena stepped down from the podium, her pulse still pounding. Hands reached out to her, students, parents, teachers, each of them saying thank you in their own language. She smiled at every one of them, her cheeks wet with quiet tears she hadn't realized she was shedding. When she finally reached her mother, Clara pulled her into an embrace so tight it nearly broke her ribs. "You did it, baby," she whispered. "You showed them who you are." Lena shook her head softly. "No, Mama," she said, her voice small but certain. "I showed them who we are." The rest of the ceremony felt like a blur, the shaking of hands, the signing of scholarship papers, the flash of cameras. But when it was over and the last applause faded, Lena slipped away from the crowd and found herself standing once again in the now silent boardroom. The room where it had all started, the same mahogany table, the same window overlooking the city, the same place where she'd once been told to leave, to stay quiet, to stay small. She ran her fingers across the polished wood, remembering Nabil's voice echoing in the walls. "Remove this trash from my office." Now the same office carried her name on the wall outside. David entered quietly behind her. "You know," he said, "I used to hate this room. All the lies, the arrogance, it made me sick. But you turned it into something good." Lena smiled faintly. "Rooms don't change people, Mr. Grant. People change rooms," he chuckled. "You're wiser than most adults I know." "Maybe I've just seen too much," she said, "or maybe you've seen exactly enough." They stood there for a moment, both watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. Cars moved like veins of light through the streets below, each one carrying a story, a dream, a struggle no one else could see. "You know," David said after a while, "there are people asking to interview you again. Big magazines, news channels." Lena turned to him, her expression calm. "Let them write whatever they want. Just tell them the story's not about me." "What's it about then?" he asked. "It's about listening," she said. "About the people no one hears until it's almost too late." He nodded. "Then that's what I'll tell them." A soft knock came at the door. Emma peeked in, the same soccer ball tucked under her arm. "Lena," she said, smiling shyly, "I learned a new word." Lena's face lit up. "Really, which one?" "Shukran," Emma said proudly. Lena laughed. "That means thank you. Good job." Emma grinned, then looked up at her father. "Can Lena come to the park?" "I promised to teach her how to score goals." David smiled. "If she finishes her world-saving business, maybe." Lena tilted her head playfully. "Saving the world can wait an hour." As they walked out together, Lena, her mother, David, and Emma, the city evening opened before them like a long breath. The air was cool, filled with the sounds of traffic and laughter and languages mixing on the street corners. At the park, Emma dropped her ball onto the grass. "Okay," she said, eyes gleaming. "Kick it toward the goal and yell something epic in one of your fancy languages." Lena thought for a moment, then whispered, "Amal." "What's that mean?" "Hope," Lena said simply and kicked. The ball flew, curved, and struck the net. Emma cheered, running after it. Clara sat on the bench, her hands folded in her lap, watching her daughter play for what felt like the first time in years. No fear, no weight, no shadows. "Just light." David sat beside her. "She reminds me of something I once read," he said softly. "That light doesn't just destroy darkness. It shows what's been hidden inside it." Clara smiled, her eyes following her daughter. She was born to shine in dark rooms. That night, when the city quieted again, Lena sat at her desk at home, pen in hand. She opened her worn notebook, the one filled with Arabic script, Spanish verbs, Korean consonants, little doodles of butterflies, and began to write on a fresh page. She wrote not as a prodigy, not as a consultant, not even as a hero. She wrote as a girl who had learned that courage doesn't always roar. It sometimes whispers in the language only a few can hear. "There will always be people who think power means silence," she wrote. "They'll talk loudly, take what isn't theirs, and call others small, but if one person listens closely enough, even a whisper can shatter an empire." She paused, looking at the words. Then she added one last line. "And when you finally find your voice, use it to lift someone else's." She closed the notebook and placed it beside her window. Outside, the lights of the city glowed against the dark sky, bright and endless. Somewhere in another building, another child was cleaning an office, listening, learning, waiting for their moment. Lena smiled to herself. "Don't wait too long," she whispered. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt the world listening back.